Considering Musk's brilliance and innovative thinking capabilities, it's no wonder he can come up with such innovations. Watch this video until the end to find out what Elon Musk revealed about artificial gravity's Starship. Welcome to Elon Musk Era. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel to stay updated on our upcoming videos about Elon Musk, Tesla, Spacex, and more. I believe it is time to recognize the merit of artificial gravity and make it a reality. And for many years, rotating space stations and spacecraft with gravity for astronaut comfort have been the subject of a large number of concepts and designs. Yet none of those concepts have been developed beyond the engineering field. And because those designs were not needed for what space agencies were after, that is why this happened. Additionally, the designs were much more expensive than zero-gravity alternatives. However, artificial gravity may have reached the point where it is not only helpful for our purposes in space, but fundamental to achieving them. Soon, lunar permanent habitats could be available on orbit, like the Lunar Gateway trip to the Red Planet or space hotels on Earth's lower atmosphere. In all of these missions, astronauts must live in space for several weeks, months, or even years. Lastly, if we are talking about this race, we also cannot overlook one of the strongest competitors, SpaceX, in the race to Mars and beyond. Yet how will SpaceX create artificial gravity for their Starship? That's what we'll discover in this episode. First off, how do you define gravity? Because everything you interact with and everyone you know is affected by gravity. It might seem silly to ask this question. After all, it's like asking a person what oxygen is. Nevertheless, the concept of gravity must be understood clearly. Further, it is something that tells us that objects with mass and energy are attracted to one another, like the attraction between rocks dropped from bridges, planets orbiting a star, or ocean tides caused by the moon. In terms of fundamental forces, gravity probably seems the most intuitive and familiar to us, but explaining it has also been a challenge. Next, let's look at how SpaceX uses artificial gravity to develop its missions. As of 2026, SpaceX plans on sending the first humans to Mars. However, that is just the beginning, as they have their eyes set on establishing a human colony on Mars, ultimately transforming humanity into a species of all planets. Furthermore, as you know, several studies demonstrate the dangers of long-term weightlessness. Also, we all know that among other things, our bodies undergo a long list of adverse effects like bone loss, muscle loss, fluid loss, cardiovascular problems, vision problems, and more. However, the real problem is returning to gravity, not weightlessness. For some instance, think of what you would experience if you landed on Mars and didn't have the ability to stand up or walk for days. Or if your health started to decline because you didn't have a decent hospital to get treatment in. Meanwhile, the potential for health complications on Mars is substantial, and it's imperative we keep the astronauts healthy as much as possible. In addition to health concerns, passengers aboard the Starship should also consider their comfort. Moreover, the first crewed flights of the Starships to Mars, carrying approximately 100 people for several months, are unlikely to be that crowded. Instead, trained astronauts will take the first flight. However, once production and infrastructure are ready and costs are reduced, SpaceX plans to send to Mars any person who wants to go and can afford to. Thus, it is possible that one day, SpaceX will have to transport passengers who are not trained astronauts with exceptional physical preparation. Meanwhile, the basic needs of human beings like showering, going to the bathroom, brushing one's teeth, or even cooking would not be possible as on Earth, especially for people not accustomed to space or mentally well-trained. The experience would be very different and uncomfortable, and to endure that for 6 months would cause quite a few issues. But how will SpaceX achieve artificial gravity in orbit? However, SpaceX has never mentioned plans to incorporate artificial gravity into its Mars transport systems or elsewhere in the solar system. The SpaceX CEO answered several tweets a few months back, referring to a fan asking about the possibility of creating artificial gravity through tethering another ship to a launch. Considering that Musk said yes and suggested that the company may even be planning to launch a Starship soon after it has been cleared for its missions, following a series of tests, he suggested it is possible. As part of the idea, science fiction was adapted to determine how realistic a franchise was trying to be. Accordingly, starships will either be able to generate their gravity by turning sections or by using some special device. Although the former concept is similar to hyperdrives, the latter is entirely feasible. In essence, the concept is similar to a hub ship, or the hub of a wheel, where a truss is used to serve as the spokes, and the payload bay serves as the hub. During the month-long voyage of over 6 months to Mars, it would travel between two spacecraft, or starships. As the passengers traveled the rest of the way, the centripetal force generated by the rotating wheel caused them to experience a feeling of being pulled down. Then, using the spin calculator, the scientists discovered a rotational velocity of 31 meters per second would be appropriate for a system measuring about 100 meters, or about 97.99 meters to be precise, or about 321 feet in radius, making 3 rotations per minute while providing the feeling of 1G. And the initial example, recorded by Konstantin Tsiolkovsky, one of the founding fathers of rocketry and aeronautics, is more than a century old. Using rotational force to create artificial gravity in space was one of his ideas in a 1903 paper titled Investigation of Outer Space Rocket Devices. Numerous variations to this idea have been proposed for space stations and habitats over the years, such as the von Braun wheel, the O'Neill cylinder, and the Stanford torus. Several concepts are even being considered for development, such as NASA's Nautilus X station, which provides artificial gravity with a rotating torus, or the Gateway Foundation's proposal for a commercial space station. Nevertheless, it has its disadvantages, the first being deployment. Since it has no rigid structure, it would be hard to extend it and more challenging to dock to one end. Moreover, since the tether can't bend and doesn't support acceleration, the rotation process would move slowly in the beginning. Additionally, I think it would be reckless to rely solely on a tether to prevent the spacecraft from flying off uncontrollably into deep space. Suppose the tether broke for some unplanned reason, it could cause a lot of damage to the people inside and possibly end the mission. Starship could be refueled in space by orbital refueling, reducing the approximate time for the crewed Earth-Mars transit by 100 days or more, putting astronauts in microgravity for a significantly shorter time than those aboard the International Space Station. Due to the extensive complexity and modifications required to make such a system function and make starships compatible, the value proposition of artificial gravity on 3-month cruises may be considerably less clear-cut. Even so, Musk did not elaborate on whether the company ended up dropping or pursuing the idea. His comment was rather cryptic, but Musk did say the company did consider the concept. Furthermore, as Small Stars outlined the concept as follows, the gravity-linked Starship concept provides a spin gravity that reuses the main engines, taps leftover fuel, and avoids impractical space construction and spacewalks. The GLS is a hub ship. Like the hub of a wheel, instead of humans and cargo, the payload bay of the GLS is filled with a truss that can robotically fold out and lock into a place, serving as the wheel spokes. Furthermore, SpaceX has looked into linking starships together in space to generate an artificial gravity in between planets on multi-month flights, as well as turning whole starships into all-in-one orbital observatories greater than the Hubble in capacity. As Saul Perlmutter reports, some members of the physics community are already investigating the possibility of using Starship as a foundation or spacecraft bus capable of handling and executing massive scientific experiments. Moreover, observers have already proposed using Starship as a launch platform for key missions in the future. This idea, however, would have the ship serve as a spacecraft itself. With this, a spacecraft anchored in the Earth's void would create artificial gravity, which would aid the Starship in stabilizing itself en route to Mars, ultimately enabling it to make a successful journey. That's all for this video about Elon Musk revealing artificial gravity Starship, and thank you for watching. If you would like to receive updates on Elon Musk and his companies, make sure you click the subscribe and bell button.